to the basement.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Basement Boys Podcast, episode 15. Back at it again. Chris Gray, Devin Mitchell, and
Yeah,
the like.
what'd it do?
Y'all know how this goes. Let's get started off right away. First thing we're going to talk about is pretty much the only thing really of any importance to talk about this week in the sports world, and it comes from the most open-minded and understanding and willing to change franchise in the NFL. If you can't tell, I am being very sarcastic.
Very.
The Washington no names as of right now.
TBDs?
So, yeah, 14 women.
15, actually.
15? I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's one on the record, but there's 15 total that have, sorry.
Yeah, so 15 total. 15 on the record. One who was willing to publicly come out and share her name. Have accused the Washington Redskins of sexual harassment coming from executives, coming from football staff, coming from the longtime announcer. And yeah, couldn't have come for a worse time for the Redskins. Or
No.
Not Redskins, I'm sorry. The no names. The Washington franchise. Yeah, so the accusations from the one woman who decided to name herself Emily Applegate. She started in 2014. She was talking about just the frequent sexual harassment and verbal abuse they endured as women working for an NFL franchise. Something that seemed to be just brushed under the rug and not really taken seriously by the organization. And it's obviously absolutely just terrible what these women went through. And it's just another black eye for Dan Schneider, who it's coming out now that it doesn't look like the league's going to force him out. And that makes absolutely zero sense to me. I think the only, I wouldn't say case that deserved it more. I'd say case that on the same level kind of deserved a force out was the Donald Sterling situation, and he was forced out.
Mm-hmm.
None of these accusations have come from Dan Schneider. Like, no one's accusing Dan Schneider of doing anything, but two things either happened here. Either you are absolutely inept and just turned a blind eye, and not even turned a blind eye, but just inept and couldn't figure out these things were happening in an organization you are the majority owner for, an organization you are supposed to know all the ins and outs of, and it just, or you did know about it and you tried to hide it and you just let everything go on just to help out the monsters in your organization.
Yeah, let's be real. The accusers have been, pro scouts, director of pro scouts, like you said, the lead voice for the radio play-by-play, and several members of Dan Schneider's inner circle. Listen, we all know guys love to talk, be like, oh, hey, I hooked up with so and so last night. Oh yeah, that's awesome. That's great. You're telling me Dan Schneider wasn't in that inner circle meeting, wasn't on that text chain, email chain, whatever it may be, and was like listening to this? Come on, how stupid can you be? You know he had to know, and like you said, he just swept it under the rug, kept sweeping, keep sweeping, and now is trying to create all deniability for this thing. Like, I'm sorry, man, but he's got to go. The league needs to step up, force him to tell the team, and let someone else run that.
And this goes all the way as high as the former COO of the company telling these women to wear tight dresses in meetings they had, so the people they're meeting with had something to look at.
Mm-hmm.
And just going off, like yelling at them that they're fucking stupid.
Mm-hmm. There was one story I read that I think it was in 2013 when the the TBDs were cheerleaders were on a trip to Costa Rica to do a photo shoot for their calendar, and members of the organization were selling access passes that was supposed to be, to a private closed set. They were selling access passes. They're basically pimping out these girls saying, hey, we need you to escort, client ABC over there and do whatever they want.
Yeah, apparently from that whole shoot or whatever, they were literally selling access passes to watch these girls change.
Yeah.
Like, that is...
Like, as a company, your job is to curate a safe and healthy work environment. I'm not an HR rep, but I can tell you that the the TBDs, have not done that at all. Nowhere close. Like, a normal job, you do that, out the door, you're done. See ya, sayonara, nice to know ya. Don't let the door hit you with the good Lord split you, but it's so crazy to me that, like, Schneider is still involved. Like, he's still the owner of this team after allegations and controversy has just followed him.
And even after saying all this, as I said before, it's looking like the NFL, they're saying they're looking at punishment for Dan Schneider, but they're apparently not looking at pushing him out, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even someone like you, who is a Giants fan, who would love to see the Redskins struggle with an inept football owner from the football side for the rest of their days, can put aside his fandom to understand that, hey, this is probably going to be a good move for the Redskins, but it's also going to be a good move for the fucking world.
Yeah.
Just
at
not
the end of the day,
letting that type of man in a locker room.
At the end of the day, we're fucking human beings. Like, listen, you could be my arch rival in sports, but at the end of the day, shit, I'll pick you up and I'll make sure you're good and you're safe and that you can get home no problem. And if you can't, I'm gonna put my jersey aside, and if I gotta throw hands, we'll throw hands.
It is all just absolutely baffling. And one of the most baffling parts about this situation to me is the league is letting the Redskins hire their own independent investigator.
That's ridiculous, too.
I'm sorry, the no names.
Oh man, what was her name? Like Beth something. Apparently, the lawyer they hired is one of the best in the DC area at handling leak information. So that, like, if they're hiring a lawyer, and not just any lawyer, like the best of the best, something fishy's going on.
And it's just crazy to me that they're going to that the NFL is allowing them to be like, yeah, I know we have all these allegations, but let me just throw my money to these people, and there's going to be no bias. There's going to be no bias to the people paying me. No way.
Right.
This whole thing is just absolutely ridiculous. If they don't force Dan Schneider out, which again, it doesn't look like they're going to be, I think this will be a giant black eye on the NFL as a whole.
Oh yeah.
Because they are basically enabling this culture to police itself almost.
Mm-hmm. I mean, look, if you look in history, there's been a good couple of bad owners. You know, whether it be they don't invest in the team, they make silly, stupid moves, you know, and their teams never succeed. But when an owner
Basically, you're
has,
describing James Dolan, but continue.
I wasn't gonna name names on that one, but yeah. I'm not at all a little hurt by James Dolan. Fucking just make. Sorry, I digress. But even when owners have done something despicable and reprehensible, like the Don Sterling case, the NBA came together and was like, "Hey, you can't do that. We're banning you for life. You have to sell the team." In baseball, the Cincinnati Reds, I forget their name. I think it was like Marge Schott or something like that. She was an openly racist person and had made several racist remarks. Major League Baseball came out, was like, "Hey, you're banned for life. You need to sell the team. Have a good day." Why isn't the NFL making the Redskins do the same thing? Like, the proof is right there in front of y'all. You can see what's happening. Time to man up and force Schneider out.
Well, it's because Goodell works for the owners.
Well,
So
you know what, Goodell? Say fuck you to your bosses and fucking grow a pair. Stun Dan Schneider, have a beer over his body like Stone Cold would, and kick him out.
And then look at the other owners that are specifically like Jerry Jones, the people that are in this year. Jerry Jones is not the type of man who. Jerry Jones is the type of man who would sweep something like this under the rug if he had the chance.
Well,
Just like
Dallas
he
Cowboys
sweeps
are-
every other problem he's ever
Dallas
had.
Cowboys are the land of like second opportunities. Like,
Yeah.
let's be real. You can commit or do something so stupid it gets you suspended for the whole year, and the Cowboys would be like, "We'll sign you. We'll
Greg
plug him
Hardy.
in." I wasn't going to name names, but yes.
I'll name all the names. Fuck Greg Hardy.
But going back to the Redskins, another story that I heard that I couldn't believe. It was a running back that was having a consensual relationship with one of the cheerleaders. And apparently the coach, Jay Gruden, was also hooking up with her on the side. So he apparently found out, or someone found out, that, you know, she's sleeping with a running back. And instead of coming at her or ending, you know, his extramarital affair, he benches the running back for a game. The game you're wondering? That Alex Smith game when he almost died. He missed a block. I mean, his replacement came in, missed a block that original running back would have made. Led to Alex Smith destroying his leg and possibly, let's be real, never playing football again. Like,
yeah, I know we've talked about it before, but have you seen that Alex Smith 360 E60, whatever it's called?
E60.
What that man went through. And if it's because of something related to this scandal, that is to
fucked up.
Yeah, it's just to bench a player because he's sleeping with your side piece. First of all, I'm pretty sure Jake Gruden's a married man.
I'm pretty sure he is too.
So the fuck you doing having side pieces to begin with?
Mm-hmm.
And even if you are, you're going to allow your personal situations to hamper the team that you are being paid for out of spite
Right.
and potentially almost kill a man.
Yeah.
Absolutely disgusting. This Washington franchise needs to get their fucking shit together.
Mm-hmm.
Just every day I feel like you're getting worse and worse news out of these people.
And you know what the crazy thing is too? We're not even talking about the fact that they still don't have a name.
True.
Like, the season should be starting, I believe, August. No, my fault. I think the players are returning to camp on July 28th.
Yes.
And you tell me the players for the Washington franchise don't even know what team they're representing? Like,
You know who I feel terrible for in all this?
who?
Ron Rivera.
But he's doing all the right things, and he's trying so damn hard to change that place.
I agree. But the man literally chose to go to this franchise and just walked into an absolute fucking shitstorm
Yeah, he did.
from day one.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, and like I'm sorry, like you said, he's been doing all the right things. He's been saying all the right things. He's, according to everyone who's ever played for him, is a completely great football coach, stand-up guy who could have had pretty much any job in the NFL, but chose to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And is having to go through all this absolute utter bullshit.
Yeah. I even heard that he said after the wake of all this most recent scandal, he was like, my daughter works here. And if that goes on, he basically was like, that is not going on anymore. If it was, like, that's then, and I'm sorry, but I'm making it sure that, like, this is a safe place for women, of all women.
And just an all-around general safe place for everyone.
Yeah.
It's absolutely disgusting. It's absolutely terrible. And I'm sure more news about this will come out in the following weeks.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the week just started for us, so I don't know. There might be another story dropping in like 2-3 days, 4 days, maybe.
Feels like with the Redskins, they get new bad headlines every other day. So I'm sure something else will come out.
You heard that EA Sports has taken out use and imagery of the Redskins logos in the newest Madden?
Yes. They said it'll still be in physical copies since they are already currently in production. But the first update when you install the game takes that all away. Mm-hmm. And they also said there might be some little misses like audio from the announcers or, pregame audio that might have references to the old name.
Right.
But again, they are working on that, and subsequent updates from there will take those things out. This is kind of a very hard process to redo a sizable piece of the game
this close to like launch date too.
Right. So it's a very big undertaking, so there will be little things that sneak through here or there, but they're at least doing their due diligence to not represent the old name in any way, shape, or form, which is a good thing. Apparently, they're just putting in like generic Washington uniforms and a generic Washington logo until they decide on something, and then once they decide and they get the logos and everything to EA, subsequent update will bring in the new logo and the new uniform design and all that.
Hashtag Washington Weasels.
Hashtag Washington Weasels.
Just for the record, I was ahead of this shit before it was cool.
It looks like the Red Tails is leading though, which I do like because
I was kind of hoping for like Red Wolves.
Well, the Red Tails, if you don't know, were the first all black Air Force unit.
Oh, word?
Yeah, so they're trying to pay homage to them while also keeping kind of like the same like syllables, at least the red whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a terrible move for them. Again, if done the right way.
Right.
But just all in all, Redskins, get your shit together. I don't know what else to tell you from there, to be quite honest. But let's get into a little bit more of kind of happier football news. As we mentioned before, the NFL sets their date for training camp. It's going to be July 28th, but you also see a large amount of players kind of being headed up by J.J. Watt and the NFLPA about how if we are to report by the 28th, which we accept, we want to play, we need certain health protocols to be in place to figure out how they are going to keep themselves safe while still being able to play the game they love. Because apparently the NFL and them have not reached an agreement on anything. They don't know if they're getting tested every day, every other day. They're talking about requiring teams to wear visors. There have been talks about like having implanted masks on the helmets, which every player is against, saying it'll make it tougher to breathe. And I understand where people are coming from, being like, oh, the mask doesn't make it harder to breathe, and I agree with you. I wear a mask 8.5 hours a day, no problem. Like, I get 20 minutes in and I don't even notice it's there anymore. But with these intense workouts and just the intensity that is a football game, I do understand where they're coming from. Because even me, I've been getting back into the swing of things with working out, wearing a mask, of course. And when you're going that hard and your body needs that extreme amount of oxygen because you're working hard, it is a little bit of a hindrance. Like, I feel it harder to catch my breath under the mask. Again, when you're doing that level of exercise, that level of cardio, that level of strain on your body and your lungs, it does make a difference. Normal situations, going to the store, going to work, wear your fucking mask, don't be an asshole. But I understand where the players are coming from, because with that type of intensity, like, you need to be able to catch your breath, and it is something that will hinder you from doing so.
Right. And it's also not just a match thing. Like, it's a safety thing too. Like, you're looking at your lives after football potentially. You don't want that to be messed up, because the league was like, oh yeah, you guys are fine to play and everything, and then you end up coming down with COVID-19, and you can't, God forbid, you can't go back to the sport that you do and making the money for your family and everything. So now you're like, fuck, what am I going to do? It's like, yeah, I wear a mask too when I'm like walking around or I'm going to the store or go to work and everything. But if you play sports, and you're running, getting hit or whatnot, you taking them deep breaths. Like, you need all the oxygen you can get. And if something's like in the way of blocking that, you're not getting as much oxygen as you need, which could potentially end up causing you to be more tired, make a mistake, and then to end, get injured.
Right. And then there's also just dealing with these new different hotspots that are popping up in some of the biggest football states in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Your Floridas, your Texases. I think even California's having some trouble right now.
Yep.
So, and these are some of your, like the Dallas Cowboys, one of the mainstays of the league. Everyone knows them, America's team. I hate that name, but
Allegedly.
it's what they call them. And then you have Tampa Bay,
Mm-hmm.
with all the things going on with Brady and Gronk coming back and this, like, the quote unquote super team they're building on offense over there. These are right smack dab in the middle of the worst places in the world to live right now as far as COVID-19 is concerned. So the fact that they're getting this close, expecting it on July 28th, which is next Tuesday?
Yeah, next Tuesday.
And they still don't have... No, this coming Tuesday. I'm sorry. No, next Tuesday.
No, next Tuesday.
Yeah. And they still don't have any type of plan in place on, or at least not shown to the players, is just not... It doesn't bode well for anyone.
No.
Especially not to finish the season. I feel like the NFL just thought, oh, you know what, by October, September, this is all going to be done and over with. And they didn't put much stock into it. But that's obviously not what happened.
I mean, listen, I feel like as a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, you got to have contingency plans. Like plan A should have been, oh yeah, by October, this will be fine and we'll be back to normal. No big deal. But then you got to have, plan B. Okay, well, if it's not fine in October, what do we do? And like plan C, like, oh shit, like it's spiking in, certain areas where we have teams. What do we do in the case of this? And
to be fair to them, we don't know if they have any of these plans, but they have not released that to the players yet, who are the ones who are going to be dealing with all these problems.
Right. And listen, as much as I would love football to be back, I'm right there with these players. Like, listen, unless it's safe and they can do it without like getting hurt or they know what they're getting themselves into, like, figure that out first and then we can play.
And to all these people saying, oh, they're making millions and millions of dollars, they can take that risk to entertain us, blah, 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 blah. Okay, the owners are making billions and billions of dollars, and they're not assuming any fucking risk.
Mm-hmm.
All these... No one's having a problem with some of these, like, big corporations like Amazon or Facebook or whoever, like, you, like, furloughing people or doing different things to help their organizations, putting their lower end people at risk. But no one's saying anything bad about Bezos or anyone for doing these, for not having to put himself at risk. It's
Right.
the same kind of deal. So, like, as much as, yeah, they are making money, like, they are making millions and millions of dollars. And trust me, would I play football right now for Patrick Mahomes' contract? Sure, but I'm in a different place than them.
Hell yeah.
You know what I mean? Just because they're making money doesn't mean they don't have families, doesn't mean they don't have this, that, or the third other things they need to think about especially when it comes in regard to their health.
Right. I mean, the bigger picture is, their health, their safety, their lives outside of football. And like I said, until they come up with a plan that's safe for the players, I don't blame them if they're like, you know what? I'm not going to report to camp. Find me, whatever. I'm not going to play until it's safe.
Yeah, and I would not blame them either. You can have all the money in the world, but if you're dead, you're dead.
Right. You can't use money when you're dead.
Football has become so depressing in the last fucking week.
It is.
I just want to see some guys run into each other, throw some balls, catch some balls, dance in end zones, but can't have that fun stuff right now.
Well, at least we got Madden.
At least we got Madden.
But to just be a little bit more depressing, Toronto Blue Jays, you hear about this? They got no home right now.
Yeah, so apparently they've been denied approval by the Canadian government to play in Toronto. They don't want the people going back across the border, and specifically from the United States, because we're the only country in the world who can't seem to get our fucking shit together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and their home opener is scheduled for July 29th. So
Yep.
I haven't heard of any backup plans yet of where they might play within the States. I guess it's not as big of a hit, seeing as there's no fans in the stands, so you don't get that like home field advantage type deal. So you don't have to worry about like I know going to Yankee games, like if the opposing team's big batter gets up, everyone's yelling, trying to throw him off. You know what I mean? So they don't have to worry about that, but they also fields make a big difference in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only sport I can think of where like you don't hear in football it's a passer's park, or
Right.
it's a runner's park, or it's a sack park.
Mm-hmm.
Where in baseball there's hitter-friendly parks, there's pitcher-friendly parks, there's the turf versus the grass, there's how much, if it's dirt in the infield or turf or whatever it is, you know what I mean? There is so much more control over your stadium than in any other sport. So that's where I think it could really hurt the Blue Jays this season.
Yep. It looks like a field in Buffalo called, if I'm butchering the name, I apologize. Shaylin Field is, look like it's the primary primary, like, backup plan. And I don't know anything about this field, but hey, at least it's kind of close to their home in Toronto, but
Buffalo's basically Canada. Come on.
Yeah, let's be real. Sorry, Toronto Bills. And but yeah, it's gotta be like a little like kind of nerve-wracking, like you said, their opening day is the 29th. And I think potentially what they could do for that date, since they're playing the Pirates, they'll just play at PNC Park in Pittsburgh and to like switch it, with whenever they meet again. But it's also like kind of like, hey, season's right around the corner. Don't know where we're gonna be playing. Little awkward here. Like to know.
Yeah, that's next
Like-
Wednesday. Like
Yeah.
next Wednesday, they have to figure this all out by.
Yeah. And then depending on where it is, like they have to be quarantined. They probably gotta get tested. So it's like all this other shit that like needs to be figured out, and yet clock is ticking.
I just feel like all these leagues, all these everything had so much time
I know.
to work this out. But they were all just banking on the idea that it was going to be done by now. And you can't do that in a world pandemic. You need to have these things set up. And that's where, again, I'm not the biggest defender of Dana White. I am not the I'm not a Dana White fanboy in any way, shape, or form. But man, did the UFC really do it right?
I think
when-
they did.
They got into their bubbles. They started in Florida, which was not their first option. They wanted to start at the Apex, moved it back to the Apex, and then got another separate bubble where they have I think it's 10 miles fenced off
Mm-hmm.
to where no one but UFC staff and the the staff from Abu Dhabi who's helping work with the UFC, they had right from the beginning, they found every backup plan they could have. They
Mhm.
hunkered down in these things for the long haul, and basically just said, "Hey, until there's a vaccine, until we get back to 100% normal, until we get back to a point where we can fill a stadium with fans and not have to worry about a goddamn thing, we are just going to hunker down here. We're going to get these fights going, and we'll figure out how everyone's trying to figure out how to work with the shutdown now,
Right.
where the UFC figured that out from the beginning and said, we'll figure out the opening later. Where
Right.
everyone else said, we'll figure out the shutdown later.
Right.
Because they were trying to hold out hope that they weren't going to have to do it because they didn't want to sacrifice their gates. But I could have told, like, yeah, if you wanted to wait out March, like the first month, maybe into April a little bit. But once we got there, it was pretty clear that this wasn't going to be over in a month or two.
Oh yeah.
You were going to be in this for the long haul, and you needed to figure this out. But they just kept holding out, and now the players are going to be in a lot more potential danger
Mm-hmm.
because you were trying to hold out so you could make more money,
Right.
which is, again, just absolutely ridiculous, especially for these businesses. I understand you want to make the max amount of money possible, but you're going to end up costing yourself more money by starting something and not being able to finish it because you wanted to hold out to try to just do it the normal way when you knew months ago that this is not what's going to happen.
Right. And there was also suggestions of building hub cities for baseball. Like baseball they got a shitload of money, let's be real. They could have picked a couple of places in the country. Maybe a place out east, maybe a place in like middle America, and a place out west. And just build a good couple fields and then have that area blocked off like the UFC did, where, hey, got a game? All right, you go to the game. Only MLB staff is there. You got your teams there. All right, everyone's tested. Bada bing, bada boom. You play. You go back, and you give players, that like, hey, like here's your job. Here's your quarantine space, so you can isolate, and then like maybe like a little free roam so they can walk around, stretch their legs, or whatever it may be, so they're not in a hotel all day. But no, they sat around, they waited and waited and waited, and look where we are. You got a team not having a home, trying to be like, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? Where I'm going to put my stuff?
And I hear there are even teams trying to open up at like 25% capacity to still make some gate money. Like, are you stupid? It's
Yes.
just, you don't need to put all these people in this area when you're still going to be making millions, if not billions of dollars from these TV
Mhm.
contracts. Like, yes, it's not the same amount of money, and it's doing things like forcing the Wilpons to sell the Mets finally.
Who apparently everyone's just trying to get in on that A-Rod J-Lo group.
Oh my God. We got to go back to A-Rod after we finish talking about this, because that guy is a fucking asshole. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. I feel like you had all this time. I feel like you had every opportunity to do it the right way, but you just held out as long as you could, putting people in more danger to maximize your profits, which I get. I get this is a money-making business and you want to make profits, but there are things bigger than profits, and a fucking world pandemic might be one of those things.
Right.
All
Listen,
right.
I'll fucking run shit, do it better than them. No, actually, I'm not gonna lie. I probably wouldn't do it better than them, but I got ideas. I got ideas right up here that I could put to good use.
Big brain time, Dev.
Big brain.
All right. Anyway, back to fucking A-Rod. A-Rod comes out, the fucking most self-serving asshole I've ever heard, after spending so many years working with the PA to make as much money as possible. I think a $500 million almost in his whole career. Now that he's a prospective owner of the Mets, is coming out in favor of a salary cap for baseball.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can I can I get a little face palm to the face action? Like, fucking moron, idiot, like Diablo, I don't even know. Like, dude, he signed at one point what with the Rangers, 10 years, 200, $300 million or something like that, something absurd amount of money.
I think it was like 225, 250, somewhere around there.
And now you don't want to, like, you know, help out your people that gonna be working for you, playing the same sport that you used to play, so you know what they're going through. Like, come on, man. Like, stop being greedy and give to the needy.
Yeah, it was 10 years, 252 millions. Um,
Fucking ridiculous.
yeah, he's just being self-serving and is now, because he's an owner, looking out for his best interest instead of the player's best interest. And that also at the same time does not bode well for the Mets, hoping that you
No.
might finally get someone who would pull the trigger and spend some money and do all that and not lose all the money you had to spend on players in a fucking Ponzi scheme.
Right.
Well, American sports are a fucking mess right now. An absolute fucking mess.
Well, we got soccer. Soccer's still going strong.
Yeah. Ugh. So let's move out of sports for just a quick second to just talk about something we brought up last week in the biggest dumb fuck of the week segment. Kanye West. Now, we already knew Kanye was an absolute idiot, supporting Trump's, saying slavery was a choice, running for president. But now, at his his first campaign rally that he held under his presidential run, which he held in Charleston, South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
He, and again, he said slavery was a choice, so I don't know why I find this surprising. He said, and I quote, Harriet Tubman never actually freed the slaves. She just had slaves work for other white people.
Yeah. Nah, bruh. Nah.
And, like, sure, do you want to say that moving to the north, like, it's not like these people had to find work and it was probably for another white person? But guess what? They were getting paid for their work and not being owned by
Getting a
another
little bit of money.
person. Like, yeah, I'm not saying slavery ended, people got out of slavery and it was completely equal and all these people were just as well off as their white counterparts. I would never say that. But you can't say freeing someone from slavery, even though it might put them in another situation that's not the greatest, is not better than slavery.
Right. And
I
was gonna say, like we all know, we all grew up and reading books and being taught in school that, yo, Harriet Tubman led the slaves from the South up into the North, and I think all the way up to Canada, if memory serves me correctly. Like,
a lot of times, yeah.
yeah, so it wasn't like, oh yeah, she just, led them to someone else and like we all knew, all right, there's the Mason-Dixon line, you crossed that, in the North, slavery is abolished. And then Canada, they were like, yo, we're not even touching that. Like, we want everyone to come in and be free and be welcome. So, like, I don't know where he's, like, coming up with, Harriet Tubman just let him to work for another white man. Like, kind of, you're missing the point, man.
Again,
let's hang out and I'll teach you some things. Like, we'll have an open conversation.
I don't know how we got here with Kanye from, well, I do and I don't, because like you've seen a lot of these celebrities of color come out and say, like, oh, I don't experience racism anymore, like your Morgan Freemans or your Lil Waynes. But that's because you are millionaires and people are willing to stash that to the side for a minute when the possibility of millions of dollars is coming at them.
Yep.
So he's coming from a little more jaded perspective now.
Mm-hmm.
But we had someone who, in the middle of a Red Cross fundraiser, looked at the camera and not only in no uncertain terms, but a completely off-script moment that had Mike Myers fucking the funniest reaction I've ever seen from a human being. He just looks at the camera. He goes from George Bush does not care about black people to, man, fuck Harriet Tubman. Like, yeah. I don't know how you fucking get there.
I don't know either. Like, I don't know, man. Kanye, I know you got paid. I know you're living a good life right now with Kim Kardashian and all your little rugrats. But what I want Kanye to do is take a minute, go find a nice quiet place, put on the College Dropout, your first album, and just listen. Listen to how hungry you were and how in touch you were with, like, what was going on, and let's bring it back to that. And then you can go back to your life. But, like, let's remember where you came from, you know?
I want Kanye to get back on his fucking meds. That's what I want Kanye to do.
Yeah, that too.
Like, my guy. And he's just getting enabled by the Kardashian family.
I know.
Anything he does, Kim, like, I get it. Like, that's his ride or die girl, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But part of riding and dying is helping that person out when they're obviously in the middle of some psychotic type break.
Right.
And especially coming from Kim Kardashian, who literally worked to get, I think with like the Innocence Project or something like that, to get people of color who had been behind
Wrongfully
bars
accused.
behind bars for wrong reasons, to get them out of jail, and now you're going and standing behind this
Right.
again. I don't know how we get here from one situation to another. How do you just flip flop so easily? And I get it. It's probably all of it's just a publicity stunt for them. And he's got a new album coming out, and he wants to like drum up attention for his album sales or whatever it is. But it's mind-boggling to me.
It is. And like it's crazy because like you said, Kim Kardashian works with the Innocence Project.
I don't know if
Yeah.
it's exactly the Innocence Project, but she works with one of those groups.
Okay. And I'm pretty sure, being that she is of Armenian descent, she has done work with like about the Armenian genocide, which is one of the worst genocides in the world, but yet it gets totally swept under the rug and like nobody knows about it. But then also like if you off the College Dropout album, Kanye wrote on the song Never Let Me Down, and I quote, "I get down for my grandfather who took my mama and made her sit in that seat where white folks didn't want us to eat. At the tender age of 6, she was arrested for the sit-ins, and with that in my blood, I was born to be different." Like that first line, right, a couple lines right there, like, yo, your family personally like fought and was protesting, you know, for like social justice and like, you know, hey, just a place for, you know, black and white folks to eat basically, and the fair treatment of that, and that you know that's in your blood, and you know you got to be different, but yet you're kind of going against that now. You're being hypocritical of yourself.
Again, that's the thing that makes me say I just want Kanye back on the meds. I feel like we're watching someone who either knows exactly what he's doing. There's one or two options. We have someone who knows exactly what he's doing, saying stupid things to drum up attention for his album, which I think is part of it. Don't get me wrong. But on the other hand, I think you have someone who's also experiencing a legitimate psychotic break. Someone who needs help.
Yeah. Kanye, go get some help, man.
Yeah.
We're here for you.
All right. Let's move on to, I guess, more depressing news, at least for me. So we'll move on to the UFC this past Saturday. I'm really only going to talk about the co-main event and the main event, both which one hurt me more than the other, a lot more. But starting off with the Hermansson versus Gastelum fight. Jack Hermansson wins in the first round by heel hook. I was really hoping for a strong return from Kelvin Gastelum, especially after that amazing fight he had with Israel Adesanya. But yeah, just was looking pretty good starting out, but when it got to the ground, it looked like he wasn't taking that heel hook. Like when Hermansson got his leg, it looked like he wasn't taking the opportunity for a leg lock seriously. and until it was too late. And you can't do that with a guy like Jack Hermanson. Once he gets a hold on you, you have fucking problems.
Yeah.
And at
Yeah,
least for
sorry.
me and my limited experience with jiu-jitsu, like I do jiu-jitsu, but I'm not nearly on the level of any of these guys. When I feel someone fishing for a leg lock, that's the first thing I deal with, because if you get caught in a heel hook, that is one of the most devastating moves. It takes a split second to rip your entire knee apart.
Oof.
And I'm talking tearing meniscuses, MCLs, ACLs, PCLs, all of it.
Mhm.
It takes a literal split second. But it does look great for Hermanson, who is a killer, especially when it comes to grappling. I guess we're just looking to see who Gastelum gets paired up with next. I'm really, really rooting for him in his next fight, because he is someone who really should have a bright future, probably a future champion if everything goes right for him. And I was really hoping to see a big comeback after the Israel Adesanya loss, but didn't seem to happen. And then in the most depressed, it's probably the most depressed I've ever been after a fight. Davidson Figueiredo versus Joseph Benavidez. Figueiredo ends it by rear naked choke in the first, choking Benavidez literally out unconscious. Ref let it hold too long, in my opinion. He was out for a minute there, still getting strangled, and it was...
Oh, damn.
Yeah, it was not an actual minute, but like it felt like a long time. And don't get me wrong, Davidson Figueiredo is a killer. He did a great fight, dropped him 3 times in that first round. But again, I feel like Benavidez didn't take it as seriously as he did the first fight. I'm not saying he didn't train as hard. I'm not saying he wasn't working. Like, I'm not saying he came in out of shape or anything like that. But the first fight, Davidson misses weight. That's why they had the second. That's one of the reasons they had the second fight, because they didn't actually get a title holder because he missed weight. Only Joseph Benavidez was able to win the title if he won that fight. But he was looking really good in that first fight. Benavidez was. He was doing a lot of right things, and then not that Figueiredo wasn't, but they had a big clash of heads that almost put Benavidez down, and that's kind of what led into the ending sequence of that first fight. So because he was doing so well, I don't think he went back and made the necessary adjustments he should have made, like Figueiredo did. Because I feel like if he had went back and made the adjustments, it didn't just... I think he had it in his head that this headbutt is the reason why I lost. That's not going to happen again this time. But you can't do that in fighting. You have to...
You constantly have to be on your toes and be able to adjust at the drop of a dime.
And he should have understood that Figueiredo was going to take the lessons he learned from that fight moving into the second one.
Mm-hmm.
And just him losing like that. And then every big UFC fan loves his wife, Megan O'Leary, who is the interviewer woman. She's great at her job. She's actually moved into the NFL a little bit now. Her first NFL interview was actually Eli Manning.
Oh, word?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
So that kind of brings like the personal aspect into it. Like, his wife, you love his wife, you love him. He's a great guy. He also does little things like with the UFC, like doing the breakdowns with Dominic Cruz. He's done a few of those. Like, he's done other little interview things. So it kind of just brings that human side into it a little bit more, and he's just an all-around nice guy, a a guy who is known to put it all out there and just a legend of the sport. And it was
Mhm.
really hard to see him go out like that in the first round after getting dropped 3 times and just getting choked unconscious. And like the choke was deep, it was hard, it was a bad visual. And I was so absolutely depressed. And
So
I also didn't necessarily like how Figueiredo handled the last win.
how
Like
so?
proclaiming himself the actual flyweight champion, even though he missed weight and did not make flyweight, and just I don't know, acting like he didn't do anything wrong when you missed weight, my guy. You know what
Gotcha.
I mean? But he came back and he did it right this time. So I'm not saying he doesn't deserve the title. I'm not saying anything bad about his skill as a fighter. He's an absolute powerhouse, especially for that division. Drops fucking bombs,
Mhm.
which no one does that at 125 because it's so hard to get that much. Just being a bigger person, being able to get your weight behind it more helps with that type of powerhouse type deal. But like him and like Cody Garbrandt have figured out how to translate that power in these lower weight classes. And he is an absolute fantastic fighter. Very much deserves to be the championship. Really put it on him in that fight. But it was just one of those things. It was terrible to see. It's it's one of those fights that like really made you depressed after.
So yeah, you said this is the second fight between these two, right?
Yes.
And have they split like each won a victory, or is
No,
it
no. Figueredo won the first one. Yeah, so the first fight, Figueredo won. It was for I believe the interim flyweight championship at the time. It
Mhm.
might not have been interim, but Henry Cejudo was still active. It just didn't look like he was going back to flyweight anytime soon. Um, Figueredo missed weight. Like, don't get me wrong, Figueredo deserved to be in that fight the first time when it happened. Like he was on a monster run. He still is, and he. But not only did he miss weight, there was a clash of heads as they were fighting that really stunned um, Benavidez.
Mhm.
And headbutt is not a legal move in MMA. Like you can't actually headbutt someone.
Okay.
This was an accidental clash of heads, but if the ref had caught that, they would have stopped the fight, given the guys time to recover, and then moved it back in. You know what I mean? Because it
Yeah.
was an illegal strike. But the ref didn't catch it, so that kind of led to the end sequence. So it was kind of like a tainted fight almost, where something illegal made it happen, made made the finish so easy for Figueiredo because Benavidez did look good in the beginning of the fight. He was leading with his head a little bit, which is not something you want to do with Figueiredo, but it was it was a good fight. It was a competitive fight, and if I remember correctly, I feel like Benavidez was pulling out a little bit in that first fight before the headbutt. Again, it was still very competitive. I'm not trying to say he was beating him up or anything.
Right.
So Figueiredo did need to come back. He needed to make weight, and he did need to put a definitive stamp on it, like he did. But that's why the immediate rematch happened. Normally, it wouldn't have happened, but because it was kind of murky, and because it's not like Figueiredo was beating him up before that. Like it's not like he was dominating him before that. That
Right.
this from that second, Dana White was just like, yeah, we're redoing this. It's the only thing that's right.
So do you think we get a third fight out of these two?
Oh no, not at all. Especially after that performance, Benavidez just looked like he wasn't getting it together where Figueiredo was. Again, I feel like he might have not made the adjustments he should have because he was doing so well in the first fight, and he had it in his head that the headbutt's the reason why I lost. But that's just my personal opinion. I'm not in his camp, obviously, but that's
Right.
just what it felt like to me personally.
Gotcha.
But it was just absolutely heartbreaking. Because that he's 35 now. He's fought Demetrius before. He had a win over Cejudo before he became the title, like the champion, and all these different things. Like this was his last shot to really be able
Do something.
to become a UFC champion. At least that's what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
And yeah, literally it happened. I just sat there and said, "No, Joe," for about a minute, turned off the TV and went to bed. It was absolutely depressing.
Right.
All right. Well,
I think that's about it.
I think that's about it for us today. A very depressing episode of the Basement Boys podcast. Something you guys have become accustomed to these days because everything sucks.
Don't worry. One day we'll be happy again. Hopefully.
One day we'll be able to talk about actual sports and not just, the prospect of sports. Well, anyway, guys, I'm Chris Gray. We got Devin Mitchell over there. Maybe over
Yo.
there. We'll figure
Yeah.
that out. Yeah, one of them.
I'm somewhere and everywhere.
We are the Basement Boys. See ya.
Deuces.
Welcome to the basement.